Some people collapse in silence because if they screamed, the truth would echo too loudly to deny. They act calm, smile at parties, and post selfies as if life is golden. But something's off, you can feel it. And guess what? You're right. The pressure is mounting and the mask is slipping. While they're busy pretending they're fine, deep down, they're crumbling slowly, quietly, tragically. Before we dive in, remember to stay close, because what we're about to unpack isn't just about them. It's about protecting your peace, your power, and your truth. Imagine this. A dam that looks strong on the outside, cement, bricks, metal holding it together. But inside, tiny cracks are forming. You can't see them from the outside, but the pressure behind that wall is growing. And one day, it doesn't explode with noise. It just splits quietly, suddenly, and everything rushes out. That's what they're going through. You just can't see it yet. When someone is truly cracking under pressure, they don't always cry for help. Especially not those who used to act like they were too cool to care. Not the ones who left you feeling replaceable, or who convinced themselves that cutting you off was healing. Those folks will go out of their way to look okay. For them, image isn't just protection, it's survival. They don't want you to see the regret or the fear creeping in late at night when no one's around. They don't want you to know that the silence you gave them is now the silence they can't escape. They'll laugh a little too loud, post a little too often, and say they've moved on a little too quickly. That's not peace, my friend. That's performance. Just because someone looks okay doesn't mean they are. Just because they're posting pictures doesn't mean they're sleeping well. Just because they're smiling in public doesn't mean they're not breaking in private. Some people would rather fake strength than face their shame. But here's the truth they'll never say out loud. They feel it. They feel your absence. They feel the void where your love used to be. They feel the weight of decisions they thought would set them free. And now that freedom feels hollow, your silence is louder than any closure they never gave. Your growth is more powerful than any explanation they withheld. Every time you chose peace over drama, healing over chasing, detachment over desperation, you taught them a lesson. One they're just starting to understand. Quiet regret hits harder than loud apologies. So if you've been wondering if they're truly okay, wonder no more. People don't always crack like glass. Sometimes they bend like metal, quietly under pressure, slowly warping in places no one sees, until one day they fold. Let them perform. Let them pretend. You just keep becoming, keeping and rising. And remember, it's not your job to catch someone who broke themselves running from the truth. Now, here's your power move. Comment below this affirmation. I see through the silence. Let the world know. Let yourself know. Let them know. If this resonates, show your support for more truth. And stay with me, because what's coming next will open your eyes even wider. Their eyes may look alive, but they've gone numb inside. You can't always spot a breakdown. It wears a smile, makes eye contact, and says, I'm fine. Some of the most broken people look the most put together. That's the sick irony of emotional pressure. It doesn't always show up as tears. Sometimes it shows up as overfunctioning, robotic smiles, polite nods, and someone saying, I'm good, when what they really mean is, I'm barely holding it together. If you've ever seen someone after a breakup or fallout acting totally fine, too fine, you know what I mean. There's a blankness in their eyes. They laugh, but the laugh doesn't land. They talk, but they're not really there. You could be standing right in front of them, but it's as if they've checked out. Their eyes may look alive, but there's no soul in the room. That right there is one of the first hidden signs that someone's cracking under pressure. It's like watching a candle burn without a flame. The wax melts, time moves, the form still exists, but the light is gone. What you're seeing is the performance, not the person. The shell of someone trying desperately to keep it all together while inside, something is unraveling. They might fool the world, but they can't fool energy. They can't fool the mirror, and they can't fool the silence that visits them when the music stops, the phone stops buzzing, and they're finally alone with the one person they've been running from. Themselves. You might start asking yourself, but if they're hurting, why do they seem so composed? Because they've been trained consciously or unconsciously to equate emotion with weakness and vulnerability with danger. They were never taught how to process pain, only how to hide it. So when pressure builds, they don't open up. They shut down, they don't scream for help. They armor up. They look you in the eye with a calmness that's terrifying because it's not real. It's survival. What's happening beneath that surface is a psychological war. One voice in their head says, "Act normal. You can't let them see you sweat." Another voice whispers, "Why does this still hurt?" And the third voice, the one they try to mute, screams, "You let something real slip away." But they won't say that. Not yet. Because if they admit that your absence is affecting them, they have to face the reality that their choices had consequences. They have to confront the truth that detaching from you didn't bring the peace they promised themselves, that walking away didn't erase the emotional blueprint you left on their soul. So they pretend, smile, joke, distract, and keep the conversation light. They focus on work, go out more. But if you pay close attention, if you stop listening to what they say and start watching what they're avoiding, you'll see the cracks forming. You'll notice they struggle to hold eye contact when certain topics come up. You'll catch the delay in their answers when someone mentions your name. You'll hear the forced enthusiasm in their voice when they say they're doing great. Nobody has to pretend this hard unless something underneath is falling apart. Yet many of you will doubt what you see. You'll gaslight yourself wondering, "Am I imagining this?" No, you're not. You're witnessing the collision between perception and truth, and the pressure they're feeling. It's not just regret. It's shame. Shame for how they handled things. Shame for pushing away someone who only wanted to love them. Shame for acting like you were disposable when now they feel the emptiness your presence once filled. Here's why this stage is hard to watch. Part of you might want to reach in, rescue, comfort, and give them the words they can't say. But listen to me carefully, don't. This moment, the numbness, the disconnection, the emotional void, is a rite of passage they must face. You can't feel it for them. You can't fix it. If you do, they won't learn, and worse, they won't change. The numbness you're seeing is the start of awareness, the part where they begin to feel the emotions they've buried. The very discomfort they're feeling is the consequence of your strength, your silence, your boundary. You didn't chase. You didn't explain yourself over and over. You didn't beg to be understood. You walked. And now they're sitting in the silence you left behind, wondering why the echo feels like a scream. It's easier for them to pretend, to hide, to perform. Because if they told the truth, if they said, "I messed up, I miss you, I feel lost," they'd have to break the character they've been playing for so long. Some people are more loyal to their image than they are to their healing. But don't let the blank stares fool you. Don't let the steady voice or the calm exterior shake your knowing. The soul doesn't lie, and the energy doesn't lie. They feel it, even if they can't say it, even if they won't say it yet. So hold the line, don't chase the mask. Stand rooted in your truth. Keep building, keep growing, keep becoming. The version of you they couldn't appreciate back then is now the one they can't stop remembering. Comment this now. I trust what I see. Let it be your mirror, your strength, your compass when their smile tries to rewrite the truth. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not reading too deep. You're just finally awake. Stay with me, because in the next section, we're peeling back another layer. The irritation, the outbursts, the unpredictable storms. They're not just mood swings. They're signs the pressure is about to overflow. You can hide sadness behind a smile, but frustration always finds a crack to leak through. They used to be chill, cool-headed, calm, unbothered. They acted like nothing could rattle them, like they were floating above the drama, sipping detachment like tea. But now, it's different. Now they're getting snappy over the tiniest things. A simple comment sets them off. A mutual friend mentions your name, and suddenly they go quiet, change the subject, or lash out with some sarcastic jab. They're irritated and frustrated, and they don't know why, but you do. When someone starts cracking under emotional pressure, it never explodes all at once. It starts with subtle fractures in their behavior, little ways their internal storm begins to spill out into the real world. Irritation usually serves as the first sign. Picture it like a pressure cooker. You can't see what's happening inside, but the heat's rising, the steam's building, and when the lid starts rattling, you know what's coming. Their irritation isn't about surface-level stuff. It's not about the dishes, the traffic, or the text you didn't reply to. It's about what they've been suppressing, the truth they're avoiding, the guilt they're trying to deny. Unprocessed emotion doesn't just disappear. It hides, it morphs, it infects everything. When someone tries to pretend they're not bothered by your absence, acting like you were never important, like they're doing great, but deep down they're spiraling. The mask starts slipping through emotion they can't control. They snap at friends, get cold with people they used to be warm with, send passive-aggressive texts, display little mood swings, or give a sudden cold shoulder. That's not confidence, that's pressure. It's their nervous system glitching under the emotional load they swore they could carry with ease. You might start asking, why are they acting like this now? Especially if they were the ones who left, ghosted, or claimed they needed space, freedom, peace. Weren't they supposed to be better off? Yes and no. They wanted peace, but they thought peace would come from distance, not from healing. They thought detachment meant power, that walking away meant freedom. But real peace doesn't come from avoiding emotions. It comes from facing them. Now that they're starting to feel the emotional cost of their decisions, they're not at peace. They're in turmoil. It shows up in the smallest cracks. They might not even realize it themselves. They'll think they're just tired or stressed out, that everyone's being annoyed. They won't admit that it's internal, that they're frustrated with themselves, that they're haunted by the silence they used to crave, that they scroll through your social media late at night and feel something they can't name. They won't admit that they miss what they let go, that the peace they imagined feels empty. If they admit that, they have to confront the lie that they didn't care, that walking away wouldn't hurt, that detachment makes you stronger. It doesn't. Emotional avoidance doesn't build strength. It delays collapse. Now they're stuck between the image they're trying to uphold and the feelings they're trying to suppress. That friction creates short tempers, mood shifts, irritability that seems out of character. But trust me, it's not random, it's a symptom. They're not mad at the world, they're mad at themselves. They're not angry at you. They're angry at how much they still feel you, and they don't know what to do with that. They told themselves they were fine, that they could move on without closure, that they could forget you like it was nothing. But now their body is rejecting the lie. Their subconscious is rejecting the narrative, and that internal war is leaking into their behavior. They might even talk about you indirectly, sarcastically, defensively. They've changed. They're different now. They think they're Everyone uses social media to express themselves. What we're talking about here is when the posting becomes manic, when it feels forced, obsessive, out of character. When someone truly finds peace, they don't rush to prove it. They live it quietly, calmly. Peace isn't loud, it's still. You chose truth, you chose growth, you chose stillness, and that's why you're free. So when you see the overposting, the over-smiling, the curated confidence, don't buy the illusion. See it for what it is. An echo of someone who lost control and is now performing peace because they don't know how to build it. Comment this below. Peace doesn't need proof. Let it ground you, guide you, and remind you that your healing isn't performative, it's powerful. You don't need to prove anything to anyone who couldn't see your value the first time. Show them, show yourself, and show the world that true growth doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs consistency. Now stay with me, because in the next section we're exposing another shadow. Not what they post, but what they avoid. The silence around certain people, certain conversations, certain memories. We're going to talk about what happens when someone starts hiding from those who see through them. The loudest lies are the ones we tell with our silence. There's a shift, a weird quietness. They're still talking, still moving, still doing the usual, but not around everyone, not in every room, not with every person. Because the moment someone who truly knows them walks in, the volume drops, the energy shifts. They go from bold to careful, from expressive to tight-lipped. You start to realize they're not quiet because they're at peace. They're quiet because they're afraid of being seen. That's one of the deepest signs they're cracking under pressure. When they go mute around the ones who used to know their truth, the friends who watch the connection fall apart, the ones who don't buy the performance. That's silence. That's not maturity. That's avoidance. Imagine standing in a courtroom and knowing one person in the crowd holds the evidence that could expose everything. That's how they treat those people now. With caution, with avoidance, with discomfort masked as distance. They won't talk about you around them. They won't ask about your name. They pretend your story doesn't exist, but it's written all over their nervous energy. And you know what's wild? These are the same people who once said, "I don't care what anyone thinks." Now they're filtering every word, every move, every glance. Because pressure isn't just about breaking down emotionally. It's about how much effort it takes to keep a lie alive. Keeping that image together in front of someone who knows better is exhausting, my friends. If someone truly moved on, they wouldn't need to censor your name. They wouldn't need to duck and dodge people who know the full story. They'd speak openly, freely, calmly. Instead, they shut down, avoid certain gatherings, and suddenly don't talk to those people anymore. Not because they've outgrown them, but because those people became mirrors. Mirrors that reflect their guilt, their regret, their cracks. You'll hear about it secondhand, maybe from a mutual friend. It's weird. They get weird whenever your name comes up, or they change the subject, and you might wonder why. If they're happy, if they're healed, if they were the one who walked away, why so quiet? Because they're not at peace. They're managing a narrative. Keeping up a narrative takes effort. It means constantly editing yourself, watching your words, and avoiding certain triggers. But here's the problem with pretending for too long. Eventually your body betrays you. Their hands fidget, their eye contact breaks, they laugh at the wrong time. They shift in their seat. Their silence becomes so loud that it drowns out the room. Not because they've matured, but because they don't trust themselves not to crack in front of the wrong witness. You see, silence isn't always strength. Sometimes silence is fear. Sometimes it's guilt's final hiding place. Because saying your name out loud means acknowledging the story they tried to bury. In the presence of truth-tellers, they know they can't fake the script anymore. They know those people remember how loved they were, how they pulled away, and how they took you for granted, then pretended it was self-love. When the performance is too fragile to survive exposure, silence becomes the only defense. They might act cold, detached, aloof, but pay attention. Those aren't boundaries, they're shields. They're escape hatches for people who don't know how to sit with the weight of their own reflection. The reflection is loudest when someone who knows the real story is around. The co-worker who used to see you two texting all day. The mutual friend who watched them pull away. The sibling who told them not to lose you. They avoid those people like a fire alarm. They can't silence because one honest question could blow up the whole performance. But here's where it gets interesting. The more they avoid those people, the more the mask slips, and the more the room feels it. Silence doesn't protect your image. It exposes the emotional weight you're trying to deny. When someone's silence becomes selective, when they're only quiet around those who remember you, that's not peace. That's pressure. Sometimes they'll try to flip it, saying, "I just don't mess with those people anymore. They were always in our business. I outgrew them." But deep down, you know it's not evolution, it's evasion. Avoiding people who tell the truth isn't growth, it's fear of being found out. They're not just avoiding others, they're avoiding themselves. The version of themselves they became when they had you. The person who felt safe, seen, stable. Now they're in rooms that feel hollow, conversations that feel staged. They're putting on a show for people who don't know what's really going on. The more they perform, the more they feel like a stranger to their own reflection. But you see through it. You're not fooled by the stillness. You know that sometimes the quietest people are carrying the loudest regrets. That silence can be a disguise for inner chaos. The less they say about you, the more it means. So don't interpret their quietness as peace. It's not grace, it's pressure. The more they avoid the truth, the heavier it sits on their chest. Pretending you're not a chapter in their life doesn't erase the fact that you were the whole book. Comment this now. Silence reveals the truth. Let that be your compass when their words disappear. When mutual friends tell you they don't talk about it. When their feed is loud but their soul is mute. Show them, show yourself, and show the world that you're not chasing performance. You're grounded in truth. In the next section, we're peeling back another layer of the breakdown. Side comments, sarcasm, and passive-aggressive texts. We're going to decode what happens when pressure turns into projection, and why their bitterness might be louder than their love ever was. When people can't face their feelings directly, they leak through sarcasm, silence, and side comments. They won't say they miss you. They won't admit they're hurting. They won't own the pressure building up inside of them. But suddenly, they've got a lot to say. Just not in the way you expected. Not with clarity or maturity, but with passive-aggressive shade, vague digs, and emotional static disguised as humor. This is one of the loudest signs they're cracking, because passive aggression is the language of the emotionally cornered. When someone's drowning in the consequences of their own choices, but is still too prideful to admit regret, their words get twisted. Their tone gets sharp. Their texts carry a strange tension. Just checking in messages that feel loaded, compliments that hit like jabs, jokes that aren't funny. They'll say things like, "Glad to see you're finally doing something with your life," or "Guess I wasn't good enough to motivate that version of you." It's not direct, but it stings. That's the point. They're not trying to reconnect, they're trying to rattle you. This isn't about resolution, it's about reaction. Passive-aggressive people don't want peace, they want control without accountability. They want to feel like they still have a place in your mind, even if it's a bitter one. They want to keep the strings attached, not because they care, but because you slipping out of their hands terrifies them more than admitting they let something real go. Sometimes it doesn't even come directly from them. Sometimes it's through mutual friends. Suddenly, they're telling people you've changed, that you think you're better now, that you're acting different. These little whisper campaigns aren't random, they're weapons. It's how they poke you without having to confront you. Because confrontation would mean facing the truth, and the truth is heavy. The truth would expose their fear, their regret, their failure to handle you right. So instead they throw shade in the shadows. You'll notice it in how they reply to your stories. Maybe they leave a weird emoji, like a photo from 6 months ago. Then nothing else. Maybe they send you a funny meme that's just a little too point. They're not saying what they really mean. They're hoping you'll decode it, hoping you'll respond, hoping you'll break the silence first so they don't have to. It's a mind game rooted in fear, because passive aggression isn't strength. It's emotional cowardice wearing a clever jacket. It's the voice of someone who can't say, "I'm sorry," so they say, "You're so sensitive." It's someone who can't say, "I miss you," so they say, "Don't worry, I'm doing fine without you." It's not clarity. It's confusion dressed up as confidence. Here's the real kicker. They're hoping you'll mirror it. They want you to play back, to clap back, to send a jab of your own, because that validates them. It means you still care. If they can't be in your heart, they'll settle for being in your head. That's the desperation behind every shady message. They'd rather be resented than forgotten. But you've grown. You don't respond to breadcrumbs. You don't decode half-truths. You don't dance around the fire just to make someone who burned you feel warm again. Because you know this isn't about them being clever. It's about them being emotionally stuck. Their sarcasm is grief wearing a costume. Their indirect jabs are just regret that hasn't grown up yet. Let me paint you a metaphor. Imagine someone tossing a stone into a pond. They want to disturb the water. They want ripples. That's what their passive aggression is, the stone. They're hoping you'll ripple, that you'll break your peace to respond to their pain. But here's the power move. Stay still. Let the stones sink. Let the surface stay smooth. Let them drown in the silence they once used to control you. Silence, when chosen, is stronger than words when weaponized. If you do reply, if you feel the urge to confront, to call them out, to clear the air, pause. Ask yourself, is this for healing, or is this just to prove I'm right? Because people who throw passive-aggressive energy your way aren't looking for healing, they're looking for leverage. They'll twist your words into another excuse to play the victim. Let's not forget the root of all this is pressure, internal chaos leaking out sideways. It's the mental and emotional weight of pretending to be unbothered while quietly falling apart. They don't know how to say, "I'm hurting," so they say, "You think you're better than me now." They can't say, "I wish things ended differently," so they say, "Must be nice to finally grow up." They think they're being slick. They think they're in control. But deep down, they're screaming for clarity, for connection, for release, and they're doing it in the most indirect, disempowered way possible. That's not your problem anymore. You're not here to babysit broken communication. You're not here to decode puzzles made out of pride. You're here to grow, heal, and move. Every time you don't respond, every time you choose stillness over smoke, you reclaim your power. So next time you receive one of those shady comments, those weird texts, those cryptic posts that feel like they were written just for you, smile. Because what you're really seeing is someone who still feels your absence, but can't say it with their chest. Someone who thought they'd be fine without you, but can't stop reaching out through shadows. Comment this now. I don't respond to shadows. Let it be your shield, your peace, your line in the sand that you will not step over. Not even for a clever insult, not even for a familiar tone. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you've graduated from emotional games, that you don't need to clap back to stand tall, and that silence is your language now. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. In the next section, we're moving beyond the words and into the body. The sleep changes, the eating shifts, the physical unraveling. We're going to uncover how emotional pressure always finds a way to show itself, especially when the mind won't admit it. The body keeps the score, especially when the mind is still pretending nothing's wrong. You want to know if they're cracking? Don't just watch their words. Watch their patterns. Watch their sleep, their energy, their eyes. Watch how their routine, once so structured, starts to fray at the edges. How late nights become early mornings with no rest in between. How meals become skipped, rushed, or emotional. How the gym they bragged about going to every day becomes just another place they're avoiding. When someone's losing emotional control, the first thing that breaks is not the facade, it's the rhythm. The nervous system doesn't lie. The body is where all the unspoken emotions go to hide. When someone is pushing down regret, guilt, sadness, fear, shame, or confusion, it starts showing up physically. It starts stealing their rest, interrupting their hunger, and breaking down their internal structure. At first, it seems small. They start staying up later, watching one more episode, scrolling until 3:00 a.m., not because they're so happy and free, but because silence terrifies them. Once the world goes to sleep, the noise in their own mind gets louder, and they're not ready to face it. So they distract, numb, and scroll through strangers, searching for something to fill the space you used to occupy. But nothing fits. Nothing lands because nothing compares to what they threw away. Then comes the food, or the lack of it. Some lose their appetite altogether. Eating becomes a chore. Others eat too much, trying to swallow their feelings down, fill the hollow place where your energy used to live. They might say they're just trying a new diet or intermittent fasting. But watch closely. Is it discipline or is it dysregulation? Their whole schedule begins to bend. They miss appointments, cancel plans, forget things they used to stay on top of. They start showing up late, not just to events but to their own life. When you're emotionally scattered, time becomes slippery. You either rush to escape the discomfort or you freeze and let the hours melt around you. Either way, your body stops working with you and starts working against you. You might hear someone say, "They've changed, they seem off." That's not growth, that's unraveling. What makes this part so subtle, so often overlooked, is that it doesn't come with dramatic declarations, no tearful monologue, no "I miss you" text. Just exhaustion. Just a worn-down version of someone who used to walk through life like they were untouchable. Now their body is betraying them in all the ways they refuse to let their emotions speak. They're tired, but they can't sleep. They're hungry, but they don't eat. They're free, but nothing feels satisfying. They thought they wanted space, but now the silence tastes like static. The freedom they fought for has become a maze of restlessness. The more they pretend they're fine, the more their body tightens up. Suppression is not peace. It's just a slow form of self-sabotage. We are not built to carry emotion without release. We are not designed to pretend forever. Eventually, what we suppress finds another way to express. If it's not through truth, it will be through tension. Some will try to hide it behind hyperproductivity. They'll dive into work, hustle harder, pick up new projects, post about grind culture. But even that becomes unsustainable because you can't outrun emotional weight. Not with caffeine, not with workouts, not with to-do lists. Eventually, the cracks in their routine will start to reflect the cracks in their spirit. They don't even know why it's happening. They can't connect the dots yet. They'll blame work stress, say they've just been busy, say they're fine, just a little tired. But deep down, they're unraveling slowly, quietly, internally, and the body is just showing what the ego is too proud to admit. They might even look in the mirror and start to see it. The bags under their eyes, the slump in their posture, the look that says, "I'm here, but I'm not okay." That scares them, because that reflection doesn't match the image they've been trying to project. The image of moving on, of leveling up, of not needing anyone, especially not you. But that lie is cracking now, not through tears, not through breakdowns, but through fatigue, dysfunction, and the little signs that their world doesn't run the way it used to, not since you walked out of it. What you must understand is this is not your invitation to fix them. This is not your cue to check in. You are not the emotional first aid for someone who ignored every signal when you were bleeding in front of them. You are not the medicine now that their sickness has surfaced. You are the mirror they shattered and are now haunted by. Let them sit in it. Let them wrestle with their own rhythms. Let them rebuild their schedule around their own accountability. Not your emotional labor, because their sleep schedule, it's not random. Their lack of appetite, it's not coincidence. Their broken routine, it's not chaos, it's consequence. The consequence of disconnecting from something that grounded them, from someone who stabilized them, from you. Comment this now. Energy doesn't lie. Say it for yourself. Say it for the ones still watching you. Say it for every time someone tried to hide behind fake peace and filtered smiles. While they're spiraling quietly behind the scenes, you are rising with clarity, purpose, and grounded peace. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that healing isn't about pretending. It's about feeling. It's about staying in rhythm with your own truth, even when it hurts, even when it's hard, especially when the ones who once called your love too much are now suffocating in the silence you left behind. Stay with me, because in the next section, we're diving into the war inside their mind. The broken stories, the narrative flips. One day you're the villain. The next you're the one who got away. We're about to expose what happens when regret rewrites the script. When people can't face the truth, they rewrite the story just to live with themselves. First, they said you were the problem. Too much, too emotional, too intense. You loved too deep, gave too much, needed too often. That's what they told themselves when they walked away. That's what they repeated to friends, to anyone who asked, and maybe for a while even to themselves. It was easier that way. Easier to blame you than to face the mirror. Easier to paint you as the storm than to admit they were the one who pulled in the lightning. But now, the script is breaking. The lines aren't landing. The mask is slipping. Their story about you is starting to shift. One day you're the villain, the one who drained them, the one who didn't understand them, the one who chained. Then suddenly, you're the memory, the good one, the real one. The "if only I had done it differently" story they quietly carry into new conversations, new connections, new distractions. This is what happens when pressure meets regret. The narrative they built to survive no longer holds up against the weight of their conscience. They start reworking the plot, bending the truth just enough so they don't have to admit the most terrifying thing of all, that you were never the problem. They were. You'll hear it in passing through mutual friends, or maybe directly in strange, uninvited texts. You always meant well. I know I was hard to deal with. I didn't know how to handle someone like you. Just like that, the same person who once claimed you were too much now hints that maybe you were exactly what they needed. But here's where it gets messy. They won't say this all at once. They'll flip-flop. One moment they're resentful, the next they're nostalgic. One week they ignore your existence. The next they're posting sad lyrics that sound a little too familiar. This inconsistency isn't random. It's not just mood swings, it's the result of a collapsing narrative. They can't keep the lies straight anymore. The version of you they pushed away, the strong, grounded, loving version, is the same version they now secretly miss. It eats at them slowly, quietly, because their ego still wants to be right, but their soul knows they were wrong. So they start rewriting the past in pieces, telling themselves half-truths like, "We weren't right for each other back then," or maybe in another life. It's their way of coping with what they lost without fully taking accountability. They soften their story about you, not for your sake but for theirs, because hatred is easy to carry when the guilt hasn't kicked in. But once the silence stretches too long, once they see you rising without them, that's when their script starts to unravel. If you're not careful, their shifting story can start to affect your own. You might begin to question what happened. Wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe you were too reactive. Maybe you expected too much. Maybe you should have tried harder. That's the danger of revisionism. It infects you if you're not grounded in your own truth. But I'm here to remind you of what they won't. You were not the problem. You were the mirror. And mirrors make people uncomfortable when they're not ready to face themselves. Their story about you keeps changing because they're changing. Not in the way they pretend, but in the way they're unraveling, regretting, and being haunted by the decisions they swore would bring them peace. They're trying to rewrite the ending to a story they thought they were done with, but it doesn't work that way. Life doesn't give you peace for pretending. It gives you peace for taking ownership, and they haven't earned that peace yet. So don't fall for the nostalgia. Don't get pulled into the revision. Just because someone remembers you differently now doesn't mean they're ready to love you properly. Just because they've stopped calling you the villain doesn't mean they're ready to become the hero of their own healing. People will tell any story to protect themselves from the pain of knowing they let something beautiful die, that they fumbled something rare, that they watched a real one walk away and didn't even try to stop it. That kind of truth is sharp. It cuts deep. The only anesthetic some people know is denial. But here's what they can't deny. Your growth is undeniable. Your glow is louder than their silence. Your boundaries, your peace, your absence, they've rewritten their life more than any breakup post could ever do. You became the unspoken chapter. They can't stop referencing even when they don't say your name. So when their story shifts, when they say you changed, or you were always solid, or I didn't know what I had, don't confuse that with readiness. Don't mistake reflection for transformation. It takes more than memory to be worthy of your presence. It takes change, real change. And real change doesn't speak in riddles. It speaks in actions, in consistency and full truth, not half blame. You're not a character in someone else's guilt trip. You're not the subplot in someone else's lesson. You are the real thing. You are the real thing. Their inability to recognize that the first time, that's not your burden to carry. If they reach out, stay grounded. If they send mixed signals, stay clear. If they shift the story, stay firm, because you don't need their approval to validate your journey, and you don't need their apology to confirm your worth. You already know the truth. Comment this now. I know my story. Write it loud. Write it for yourself. Write it so the next time their narrative wobbles, you won't wobble with it. Let the world know that your identity isn't up for debate. Your peace isn't up for negotiation. And your truth doesn't change just because someone else's memory does. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that you're no longer waiting for them to tell the right story. You've moved on to write a better one, with peace, strength, and full clarity. And that's how this ends. Not with them rewriting the past, but with you reclaiming your power. The chapter is closed. The story is yours. Let them remember however they need to, but you move forward unshaken, unbothered, unapologetically free.